Welcome back. Glad you are still with us. This is Good Morning Kenya. I'm Jain Wambui. I'd love to know where you're watching us from this morning, so feel free to interact with us on our social media platforms. On Twitter, the hashtag to use is Good Morning Kenya. At KBC Channel 1 ever remains to be our official station handle. My handle is Jain Wambui. I welcome your feeds and, just your thoughts in regards to these conversations that we'll be embarking on in a minute. Kamale na kuona hapo Twitter nasema Regina kuwa mpole. Trailer yawa. Love conquers all. Tupatie trailer movie ya hii harusi unaenda. Keep them coming in. We will be sampling your views and comments as we proceed on with this particular program. As mentioned, today is Tuesday and we always get to have our health conversations, and we want to start with the first discussion for the day on our Health Tuesday segment, and this is all about endometriosis. This is a condition that so many ladies have been struggling with, have been misdiagnosed over the years, haven't information about all this. Well, we are here to give you all that information as we help you understand and know what this is all about. But before we get to do that, I will be introducing my guest in a bit. Once again, communication platforms still remain open, and this is just looking at endometriosis. We are in a month where we are celebrating conversations around endometriosis, just trying to get the information out there, what you need to know about this, and also consequently getting to learn about the different complications that come as a result of this. And today we have a doctor with us in studio. He is Dr. Hussein Bagha, who is a consulting physician as well as nephrologist. And today we'll be getting to understand the relationship, and especially looking at kidney diseases as well. Good morning, Dr. Harry.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us this morning. Are you on social media? Maybe you could start by giving our viewers your social media handles.
No, not really. I'm just on Facebook and Instagram.
How can guys find you?
Just Hussein Bagha.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so you can be able to interact with him. Any questions that you have around that, feel free to shoot them through. But let's start by having these conversations around kidney disease. And nephrology is a huge word for so many people. And maybe just start by breaking it down for our viewers. When we talk about nephrology, what do we mean?
So nephrology basically means a discipline that deals with the kidneys. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're dealing with the kidneys, remember that the kidney is part of the genitourinary tract.
Yes.
So we have the kidneys, we have the ureters, we have the bladder, and that's a urinary bladder, and we also have the prostate for mm-hmm. men. So we basically deal with any of these diseases, any diseases that affect any of these organs.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I had earlier on mentioned, issues to do with endometriosis and kidney disease. Is there a relationship between these two?
Okay, generally there's no direct relationship between endometriosis and kidney disease per se. Mm-hmm. Yeah, although sometimes you can get some tissues of the endometrium being deposited on the kidneys, mm-hmm. and this can cause a lot of pain for the patients as well. All
right. Yes. Now let's just delve deeper into this conversation about kidney disease and start by understanding the different factors that could contribute to kidney disease. And from where you sit, from your interaction with people, let's start with age. Looking at the patients you have interacted with, you've gotten to treat, what is the biggest age group that has been coming with issues to do with kidney disease?
Actually, there is no particular age group that you can say is the highest in terms of highest prevalence of chronic kidney disease. Mm-hmm. Remember that the most common cause of chronic kidney disease is diabetes and hypertension.
Yes.
And diabetes and hypertension, initially we thought that diabetes would only affect the people who are living in the urban areas. Mm-hmm. And that was a myth that we had. We also thought that diabetes does not affect people in the developing world. That was another myth that we had. Now we know that diabetes affects people living in the low and middle income countries. So yes. Kenya is categorized as a low and middle income country. So mm-hmm. we are affected quite a bit by diabetes and high blood pressure, which are considered to be the non-communicable diseases. The studies done in Kenya have also shown that people living in the rural areas also have a high prevalence of diabetes. Mm-hmm. Actually, the current estimates show that the highest prevalence of diabetes is actually in the central region.
Yes.
So people who get diabetes and people who get high blood pressure at a very high risk of developing chronic kidney disease, especially if they are not being monitored, or they're not monitoring their blood pressures, or they're not monitoring the blood sugars, they're not careful about their diet, they're not careful about their lifestyle, and if they don't come for regular checkups. We have obesity, which is on the increase in Kenya as well.
Contributing factor.
Which is also a contributing factor to both directly to the chronic kidney disease, as well as to the patients developing diabetes and high blood pressure. And unfortunately, the obesity is more prevalent now in the youth.
The younger population. Yeah.
So now we are seeing more and more chronic kidney disease even in the younger population. So this is where, whereby I say that we don't have a particular age group in which we'll see a higher prevalence of chronic kidney disease. We're seeing it across all the age brackets currently.
Yes. Now, looking at the question of family history, to what percentage does it contribute to kidney disease, or does it even have any role when it comes to kidney disease?
Yes, so there are some diseases like polycystic kidney disease, which is a genetic disease and is directly inherited. So for example, if you have one person in the family, like the father or the mother, who has polycystic kidney disease, then there's a very high likelihood of the children developing polycystic kidney disease. This is a direct correlation, one of the best examples of genetic diseases. Then of course, if you have diabetes, which is also has some genetic preponderance, okay, then your chances of your children or your siblings developing diabetes becomes slightly higher. And we know that diabetes and high blood pressure also cause kidney disease. So it can be directly related, like for example, for polycystic kidney disease, if you have the gene for polycystic kidney disease, the autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease, then you can get your sibling, your children or your offspring being affected directly, and the chances are very high. If you have diabetes or high blood pressure, remember that there is a genetic component to that as well. So if your offsprings develop it, and then they can also develop diabetes and chronic kidney disease if they develop diabetes and high blood pressure.
All right. I think that is something that we need to take note of, and especially as parents, if you are aware of such information, it would be good to always just have regular checkups with your children to just make sure that if they are at risk, you are arresting the situation before we get to the actual cases of trying to look for a cure. Now, you had mentioned lifestyle issues, and I want us to look at stress and smoking, which is something everybody is stressed at one point or the other. We all undergo different forms of stresses, and some resort to extracurricular activities like smoking as a let out, as to get just that quick high. But when it comes to kidney disease and chronic kidney disease for that matter, does smoking paired with stress and many other lifestyle issues contribute, and to what percentage, towards kidney disease?
So smoking does not directly cause chronic kidney disease, but what the studies have shown is that if you have chronic kidney disease and you continue to smoke, then the progression of you going into end-stage kidney disease is more rapid, as opposed to somebody who does not smoke.
Oh.
So you see, remember that smoking will also affect your heart as well, okay? Smoking predisposes you to cancers as well. So if you look at the fact that if you develop a heart attack and your heart starts failing, remember that the heart and the kidney are very closely interrelated. They work very closely. So if you develop heart failure because of smoking, then your chances of worsening or causing chronic kidney disease becomes much higher. Okay, there's an entity called the Cardiorenal Syndrome. Cardio is heart, renal is the kidneys. So any of the two organs, any one of these two organs, if they get affected, will affect the other one as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't contribute, but it accelerates.
Accelerates,
yes. Okay. I think it is key to note that difference. All right. Now, let's talk a bit about, some of those symptoms that clearly or might not be as clear when it comes to pointing out that there could be a condition or something wrong with your kidneys. And I'd like for you to just help us go through and understand the different levels of kidney disease before we get to chronic kidney disease. And what are some of those first symptoms that we can experience? Because I know of fatigue, and sometimes you're not able to just tell apart what kind of fatigue this would be, because you always have a reason. Maybe I didn't sleep enough last night. Maybe I worked too much last night. As a result, that's why I'm feeling this way. When it comes to fatigue, does it come with, what are the symptoms does it come with that point towards kidney disease?
Okay, so that's a very good question, and I'm always asked this question, as in, what are the earliest symptoms of chronic kidney disease?
Yeah.
Sometimes you will actually not get any symptoms, especially if you have stage 1 chronic kidney disease or even sometimes stage 2 chronic kidney disease. The only way that you will know that your kidneys are affected is if you go for regular checkups. So the question is, should an 18-year-old go for regular checkups? Yes. Or should it be a 24-year-old, or should it be a 30-year-old? As in, what is the age cutoff? And what should I tell my doctor as well? So the simplest answer to this is that you need to understand whether you have any of these conditions that can predispose you to chronic kidney disease. Like, for example, if you are diabetic, if you have hypertension, if you've been admitted in hospital and you are told that you had what is called acute kidney disease and it recovered, then you know that you are at a higher risk of developing chronic kidney disease. In that case, you need to go for your regular checkups to your physician. Then your physician will order for blood tests and a urine test. It's a very simple thing to do, the blood test and the urine test. What we look for in the urine is any proteins in the urine, which show that the kidney is now leaking out proteins. Or if your creatinine, which is what we look for in the blood test, starts going up. Now, if you are in the stages of stage 3, 4, or 5 chronic kidney disease, then you'll start getting fatigue as one of the earliest symptoms. Okay. Now,
but that's at a very advanced stage.
As in from stage 3 onwards.
Okay.
So stage 5 is now the advanced stage, the last stage of chronic kidney disease. By the time you're hitting end-stage kidney disease or stage 5, now remember that your kidneys are not functioning at all. That means that you are not able to remove the water that is accumulating in the bodies. You're not able to remove the toxins that the body normally, the kidneys normally filter out. Okay, so at that point in time, you'll find that even your breathing gets compromised because there's a lot of fluid accumulation within the kidneys, okay? And you start having other symptoms like you lose your appetite because of the toxins that are building up in your body. You start having vomiting as well. Your legs start swelling as well. And even sometimes some of the patients start having pruritus, that's itching, generalized. And that's one of the signs of end-stage kidney disease because the toxins also get deposited under the skin and cause a reaction and you start itching quite a bit.
Oh, wow. And issues to do with blood pressure, because I also find it is something that I have seen a number of people who have kidney disease struggle with blood pressure, high blood pressure specifically. What is the relationship with blood pressure and kidney disease?
So see, again, it's a story of the egg or the chicken, which came first, isn't it? Because high blood pressure causes chronic kidney disease if it's not controlled. And when you develop chronic kidney disease, you can get high blood pressure as well. And the patients who have chronic kidney disease and hypertension, their blood pressures are very difficult to control because the kidneys are quite integral when it comes to controlling of the blood pressure because they get rid of the excess volume of water and the salts. Remember that salt and water are the ones that basically contribute highly to your blood pressure. So if you're not able to control those when your kidneys have failed, then controlling your blood pressure becomes quite challenging. And I have a lot of patients who have end-stage kidney disease who are on 5 or 6 medications to control their blood pressure. And even then, it is quite difficult to control their blood pressure.
I can attest to that when it comes to the number of medication that a kidney patient has to take on a daily, just maintain the different levels, creatinine, so many other issues come into play right there. But then there's the question as to whether kidney disease is reversible. And to what extent or at what stage can it be arrested and be reversed if that is possible? So a lot of times, by the time that your creatinine starts going up, which is what we use as a marker of chronic kidney disease or kidney injury, unfortunately, it is quite late by the time your creatinine starts going up because the body has various means of trying to get rid of this creatinine as well. So if we arrest it early, I mean, if you pick up early that you're developing kidney injury and we identify the triggers for the kidney injury, like, for example, if you're taking over-the-counter medications like non-steroidals, like Brufen, diclofenac, Maramoja, all of those contain the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs that are very harmful to the kidney. And my plea is to everybody, please don't take these over-the-counter medications. Self-medication.
Yes, don't self-medicate, please. The other thing is that I've noticed that a lot of people are taking herbal medicines as well. You see, they'll be advised by their relatives or they'll be advised by the traditional guys that, yeah, if you take this, you'll be cured of diabetes, you'll be cured of hypertension. You know, the doctors are not okay because they just want to make money from you. That is not true, okay? So if you identify that you've been taking this, we advise you to stop immediately. If the damage has not been going on for a long time, it may be reversible. Okay? If you have developed an infection and that has caused acute kidney injury and we treat the infection aggressively, it can reverse. One of the commonest infections that actually cause acute kidney injury is acute gastroenteritis. That's diarrhea and vomiting, followed by malaria as well. I mean, those are the ones that normally we see a lot. And studies have actually been done to show that, especially in our setup in low and middle income countries, that's the most common cause of acute kidney injury. So once when you do that, I mean, we can identify the triggers, treat the triggers. It is reversible. You can get back to a normal kidney function, but that does not mean that your reserve is normal again. Remember that the damage has been done. It's just that the other parts of the kidney have taken over to now compensate. Yes. So you are at a higher risk of developing acute kidney injury and chronic kidney disease again. So then you have to be extra careful and make sure that you follow up with a nephrologist, even if it's every 3 months or 6 months. That's what we recommend, to make sure that you're not going into chronic kidney disease again.
All right. Now, for those who may have been unfortunate to have gone past that irreversible point, what are the treatment options that are available? And just looking at the local space, in as much as the global space is advancing in terms of medicine, but looking at what is available here in our country, what are the treatment options available?
So if you have developed end-stage kidney disease, you need to undergo what is called renal replacement therapy. Now, broadly speaking, there are 2 types of renal replacement therapy. One is dialysis and one is transplantation.
Yes.
So dialysis basically tries to work as a surrogate kidney. What we tend to do, especially for hemodialysis, remember there are 2 types of dialysis. There's a hemodialysis and what is called peritoneal dialysis. So for hemodialysis, what we do is that we fix in a catheter or an access like an arteriovenous fistula, and we remove the blood, pass it through a machine, which is the surrogate kidney. It is cleansed, and all the excess water and toxins are removed, and then the blood is taken back into the body. And we do it for a minimum of 4 hours, minimum of twice a week. Okay. Recommendation is, of course, thrice a week. And what we always advocate for as the nephrology community is that dialysis is supposed to be a stopgap measure. Okay. Ideally, every patient who is transplantable, those are my words, who is transplantable. There are some patients, unfortunately, because of the various conditions they have, we cannot offer them transplants. But every patient who is transplantable should be offered a kidney transplant, because that has the best outcome. If you compare somebody who is on dialysis vis-a-vis somebody who has been transplanted, the patient who is transplanted does much better, both in terms of the quality of life as well as the outcomes in terms of mortality. That means that chances of dying are much less when you have been transplanted.
All right. Now, looking at the management, and especially now post having a transplant, what are some of those things that we need to pay attention to when it comes to the management, and especially of the transplanted kidney, because you cannot also just go back to business as usual? What are some of those tips and pointers that you would advise maybe someone who is watching us this morning, they have recently undergone a transplant, that they need to be very careful about?
Okay, remember that once when you've been transplanted, you need to be on medications for the rest of your life. You cannot stop the transplant medications, or the rejection medications as we call it, because what we have done is that we have taken a foreign kidney, foreign tissue, and put it in your body. Now, the body normally tends to reject any foreign tissue. They think it is something invading, so they will try to reject that kidney. So you have to take the anti-rejection medications for life. Now, the anti-rejection medications, the way how they work is that they suppress the immunity. Okay, that's one thing. So when your immunity is suppressed, your chances of picking up any opportunistic infections becomes very high.
Yes.
So you have to be extra cautious, especially in the COVID pandemic. Okay, and you have to, of course, practice your social distancing, hand hygiene, wearing a mask. That is very important. Number 2, it does not mean that you don't have to take care of the previous conditions that you had, like diabetes and high blood pressure, because those are the ones that led to the initial disease, the chronic kidney disease.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful, because you have to make sure that your blood pressures are well controlled, your blood sugars are well controlled, you're not taking over-the-counter medications. And after transplant, you have to make sure that you are seeing your doctor on a regular basis. Initially, it is for the first 1 month every week, after which it is monthly for 1 year, then once every 2 months in the second year, and once every 3 months after that for life, unless if something happens acutely.
All right. And can the transplanted kidney fail even if you are on medication?
Yes, the transplanted kidney can fail, and there are several reasons for the transplanted kidney for failing. The same way as when your native kidneys, your original kidneys can fail if your blood sugar is not controlled, if your blood pressure is not controlled, if you develop an obstruction like a stone, or if you take over-the-counter medications, or if you take over-the-counter medications, or you take herbal medications, you can develop, or you develop these opportunistic infections. There are particular opportunistic infections like cytomegalovirus infections and BK viral infections that actually directly affect the kidney and cause failure.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, even when you have gotten a transplant, would you still need to dialyze even with a new kidney in place?
If the kidney is functioning well, no. You don't need to dialyze. Unless if that kidney fails is when you need to dialyze.
All right. Yes. Now, in as much as we are celebrating endometriosis this month, we are also looking at the conversation around kidney, and March is also known as the National Kidney Month, and it will be celebrated on the 11th of March, which is coming up in a day or two. And the theme for this year is living well with kidney disease. From what you have seen interacting with the different patients out there, what are some of those misconceptions that come along with kidney diseases that you have seen are misguiding people and consequently leading them to deeper pits when it comes to kidney diseases, or a vicious recurrent episode of kidney disease, kidney failure, transplanting, then it fails? Those lifestyle and habitual habits, habitual traits that we have that are very harmful towards the management.
Well, when I first came back from my training as a nephrologist, and my very first patient that I mentioned too, that your kidneys are not functioning and you require dialysis, the patient actually ran out of my office. And
for fear?
It's basically the fear.
Okay.
So, and up to now, unfortunately, despite all the education that we have done and trying to enlighten the public, that when you have kidney disease, it is not a death sentence. We have treatment options that are available, okay? People still feel that when I tell them that they're requiring dialysis or they're supposed to be on transplant, people want to walk away, they want to make the wills, and up to now, even up to last week or the week before, when I've been trying to explain to a patient and convince them that they need renal replacement therapy and they need to start on dialysis, they are actually so scared, they break down, they tell me that they're going to die, they need to go with the family, make the wills. And it takes a lot of counseling to actually encourage these patients to now start the renal replacement therapy. And initially, as I say, the first thing we can do is to offer them is dialysis. Okay? So this is one of the myths that is out there, that once when you develop kidney disease and you have been told that you're supposed to go on dialysis, you're going to die.
It's a death sentence.
That is not true.
Okay.
I have patients who are not transplantable who have been on dialysis for 10, 15 years, and they're doing quite well. Okay? But that does not mean that you don't try for the transplant. Transplant is much better. Number two, the other myth that I've seen, especially with transplant patients, is that the first 3 months they'll be very, very diligent in coming to you, following your instructions, but suddenly they're feeling better, and then they're like, oh, why do I need to take these tablets every day, 6, 7 tablets? I mean, I'm feeling so much better, I'm passing urine. They stop the medications. Then they come to see me after 3 months when again they are in end-stage kidney disease and the kidney has been rejected by the body. Unfortunately. So even if you are transplanted, let us make sure that we follow the doctor's instructions. We come for our regular checkups as well. You mentioned the World Kidney Day.
Yes.
The theme of this year's World Kidney Day is living well with kidney disease. Now, remember that even when I put you on dialysis, my job does not end there.
Yes.
You are supposed to come to to the hospital or the dialysis unit minimum of twice a week, 4 hours in a day. You have to come with a caregiver, especially if you're elderly. So most of our patients who are on dialysis are the working class community, okay? The ones who are the caregivers are also the working class community as well. So they have to leave their jobs. Okay? Initially, we would be thinking all about, oh, how can we prevent the patient from losing his or her life? How can we prevent the patient by increasing the longevity? But now the theme of this year's World Kidney Day theme is living well. So we have to take the whole thing into consideration holistically about the quality of life. If you have had a relative who has had end-stage kidney disease and is going dialysis, you know how difficult it is taking the patient to the dialysis unit, whether it's in the hospital or a standalone unit, waiting for the patient, coming back. You have to miss work. 5 hours of your work during that day have gone. So we need to now ask ourselves that, yes, we are all trying our level best as nephrologists to just improve the longevity, reduce mortality. But this is a human being. There's a social aspect to that whole context as well, you see? So what we have done at the hospital where I work, because I saw that happening a lot of patients refuse to come to hospital or for dialysis because they're like, oh, we are working, we will lose our jobs. Yes, the law does protect the patient as well, but we have started what is called a nighttime dialysis. So what happens is, especially for the working class, for those caregivers who cannot leave their work and bring the patient, we have given them an option at the MP Shah Hospital too, if they want to do it in the evenings. And
post-work hours.
Yeah, post-work hours from 5 or 6 up to 10 o'clock. And we actually give them the curfew passes as well from the hospital so that they don't get inconvenienced in any way.
All right. Now, still looking at that holistic approach and just trying to encourage a life of wellness, especially living with kidney disease, therein comes the question of awareness and the kind of information that is being put out there for both the kidney patient and the caregivers around them. Are we having enough, especially looking at the hospitals, which is the main source of information for those who interact with the kidney patients almost on a daily? Do we have enough sensitization and awareness and caregiving measures available to these patients and the caregivers that accompany them to just help improve the quality of life as a whole?
Yes, so you see, this is why especially where I work, I always insist that all the patients should at least, with the caregivers, should see the nephrologist at least once a month. At the MP Shah Hospital, we also have a counselor who is readily available to talk to the patients on a regular basis, and she does rounds once a month as well. We have a nutritionist who also is available for the kidney patients once a month, and it's all covered by the package of NHIF. I made sure that everything, the patients don't pay out of their pocket for these services, including seeing me once a month as well.
Yes.
Because we know that this is a chronic disease. I mean, it is quite challenging both in terms of your time, both in terms of also finances or economical constraints as well. So we have tried to make it as easy as possible for our patients to make sure that they get the best of care. But unfortunately, a lot of patients still, I mean, it's human nature. I mean, they will still have issues, and some of them will not come for their monthly checkups as well, because it is tiring coming to the hospital every twice a week or thrice a week. And then you have been told to, okay, you need to see the doctor as well.
Yes.
So it does become a bit challenging, but we do try to offer holistic care. Now, we have the Kenya Renal Association, which is being headed by our president, Dr. Ahmed Twahir, who is a very senior nephrologist. And we do try to hold awareness campaigns, like for this World Kidney Day. We are trying to hold awareness campaigns. Of course, we are limited by the fact that with the COVID pandemic, we cannot do this screening programs and everything, but we are trying to do use social media like Zoom and even Facebook and Twitters to see, like especially tomorrow we'll try to hold that, and it's an open platform where people can ask questions and they'll be answered by nephrologists, all the questions that they have. So we do try to do what we can do, but sometimes I believe we need to do a bit more, and the media should, I mean, we request the media to actually help us as well, to try and get the message across to the public. Number one, kidney disease is not a death sentence.
Yes.
Kidney disease is preventable. We can slow down the progression of kidney disease. Even though I'm a nephrologist, I don't like to see people on dialysis. Unfortunately, I know people actually wonder why I do that. But I've seen people on dialysis, and it's something that I know reduces your quality of life if you're on dialysis. So my job is to prevent you from getting onto dialysis. And we do everything we can to try to prevent you from getting onto dialysis.
All right. Now, another part of the conversation that we don't really get to hear as a people is now coming from the donors' side of the divide. We don't get to have national conversations, as, you know, we have national appeals for blood donation, organ donation, and looking at kidney donation as a whole. How are we doing as a country?
Okay, so we have come quite far when it comes to kidney donation, because we don't do any other organ donation. The only other tissue donation that we do is basically the cornea, and of course blood donations, as you rightfully said. And we started this program sometime back in the 1990s, but now is when we are seeing huge strides have been made and a number of centers have been set up. Unfortunately, we don't do what is called the deceased donor transplantation, donor organ transplantation, which is whereby if I die, then I have said that I want my organs to be donated, and they are basically taken out from my body and given to those patients who basically require the organs. So this kind of limits us, because currently what we do is related living donor organ transplantation only. And remember that the donors are also scarce as well. I mean, it has to be, currently we don't have a law for non-related living donors, and we don't practice that because of the fear of exploitation. Like, for example, you can bring somebody and you pay them money and say that, yeah, this is altruistic donation, and we will not be able to prove or disprove. So as an association, we don't advocate for non-related right now until we get the legal frameworks in place to make sure that no exploitation is done. So we only do the related living donors, and a lot of times we find that as I said, diabetes and hypertension runs in families. And when you get this, you are at higher risk of developing kidney disease. So our first priority is protecting the donor, the potential donor. We don't want somebody who is totally healthy and whose kidneys are functioning fine, but is at a very high risk of developing kidney disease. We remove one of his or her kidneys, and then they go into end-stage kidney disease, while the other patient, we have taken them out.
Creating another problem.
Another problem altogether. So that kind of has been the limiting factor, plus, of course, the financial aspect, the cost as well. The cost of doing a transplant in Kenya is currently between 1.6 million to 2 million Kenyan shillings. Of course, NHIF does reimburse around 600,000 Kenyan shillings, but the remaining 1 million, of course, the family has to come up, especially if they don't have the insurance. And then remember that it's not only that money that you require, there's a money after the transplant for the rejection drugs, which costs around 50,000 per month for the first 1 year, then 40,000 for the second year, and then 30,000 onwards. So we have been trying to work with the NHIF and the Ministry of Health, trying to appeal to them to basically make this at least a transplant medications or the anti-rejection drugs for free. Because remember, when NHIF reimburses for the dialysis, what they allow for is 2 dialysis sessions per week, and in a month it's 8 sessions, and each dialysis session is reimbursed 9,500. So per month they reimburse 76,000. So if they're going to reimburse 50,000 for the transplant medications, you're going to be saving 26,000 for the 1 year every month. For the second year is 36,000, and for the third year is 46,000. So if you look at the economies of scale, I mean, it is much more economical to basically transplant the patients and get them off dialysis. You'll be making direct cost savings. Now, if you look at the indirect cost saving, this patient does not have to miss work. This patient's quality of life improves, energy improves.
Way better.
So he gets back to the working force. He contributes to the tax. He contributes to the GDP as well.
All right. No, so to just encourage that donation spirit from the people who to be willingly giving and consensually giving for that matter, and especially post-death, and somebody may have had a very healthy kidney, no complications whatsoever, and we're also in a very cultural space. We believe in being buried intact, no part of you missing, and also we need to be alive to the fact that we're living in times where organ selling business and is a problem that we're also dealing with. To build a culture that encourages donation of kidney from a diseased person who was healthy, to just encourage and shift the conversation from more of dialyzing to transplanting, and especially within our Kenyan space, you don't have to go to India where most people get to go. How do we redirect this conversation towards having donation as a regular conversation?
I mean, it all boils down to, of course, educating the public and creating awareness about donation, kidney donation, be it related living donor organ transplant programs or the deceased donor organ programs. Of course, you see, we live in a very diverse society in Kenya. We have very many tribes, very many cultures, and there's always going to be that aspect that one is that it's a taboo to donate. Or if you remove any organ from the body and if you're not intact, your forefathers are not going to accept you. You will not be allowed to go into heaven if you're missing an organ.
To the next life.
To the next life, yes, unfortunately. But you see, one of the ways in which I know that some countries worked around this was that they involved also the religious leaders as well. So the religious leaders play a big part when it comes to deceased donor organ programs, because they dispel all the myths that are there. Like, if you look at Islam, if there's nowhere that's written that organ donation is forbidden. Yeah, even after you die, it's up to you whether you want to help somebody. It's like helping somebody lead a better life.
Yes.
And this is the greatest legacy that you can leave somebody, even after you die, isn't it? So what we need to do is to basically involve the religious leaders, of course, involve the government officials, the professionals, and then now try to create policy makers, and try to create platforms for education for the masses. So this is the only way that it is going to work, and that people then subsequently are going to accept that, yes, donation should be part of our normal daily activities.
Just the way we go to donate blood, you can always leave a consensual piece of document that can say, once I am deceased, let my organs be donated, to just help a life or two, because we're also living in a time where we are seeing children who are growing up with chronic diseases, and yet there could be somebody who, in one way or the other, could be able to save this life of this child. Now, as we close this conversation, again, it boils back down to our habits as individuals that could either make or break our kidneys. And even post-transplant, or even when you're getting your dialysis, what are those healthy kidney habits that should cut across regardless of your age, and especially if you're an age where you understand what you are doing? Habits that are meant to take care of our kidneys.
Keep yourself well hydrated, especially in this heat. I mean, I've seen so many patients coming to my clinic with stones, kidney stones. One of the commonest causes of kidney stones is when you don't hydrate yourself well. Drink plenty of water, 1.5 to 2 liters a day, especially in this heat. It's very, very important, okay? Eat a healthy, have a healthy diet, okay? Now, avoid eating junk food, because remember, when you eat junk foods, it basically predisposes you to getting high blood pressure, it predisposes you to getting diabetes, and it predisposes you to becoming obese. All of those three are basically factors that contribute to chronic kidney disease. When exercising is very important as well. Exercise helps to improve your blood pressure, it helps to reduce your weight, and gets you to the optimal BMI as well, okay? Very important is, don't go to the chemist and buy over-the-counter medication. This is my plea to all of you in Kenya. This is one of the biggest things that I see. People have been popping in, self-medicating, popping Brufens and diclofenacs and Maramoja as well. And you find that somebody already has chronic kidney disease. They don't know about it. And the more you take those medications, the faster you are progressing to end-stage kidney disease. Herbal medicine is a no-no. There's a reason why we don't offer herbal medicines in the hospitals. It is not that because the hospitals want to make money. The herbal medicines have not been tested. By the time a drug is coming into the market, it has taken 10 years of R&D, research and development, and billions of dollars have been poured into it to make sure it is safe for the humans.
Human consumption.
Okay?
All right. So thank you so much for that. It starts with you to take care of your kidney, and even as we celebrate Kidney Month, the theme for this year is living well with kidney disease.